11 lawyers crushed by one cleaning lady's 2-minute solution. The shocking truth revealed. In the heart of a bustling city, news broke that sent shockwaves through the legal world. A cleaning lady, known only as Rosie, stood before the imposing glass walls of a towering law firm, and in less than 2 minutes, she shattered the careers of 11 esteemed lawyers. How could a simple janitor bring down the heavy hitters of the legal battlefield? It sounded absurd, maybe even like a twisted fairy tale, but if you were one of the onlookers that day, it felt all too real. The air was thick with anticipation as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Was this just a fluke, or was there something sinister lurking beneath the surface? People squinted against the sunlight, watching with bated breath as Rosie, clad in her bright yellow uniform, wielded a mop like a weapon. Yes, a mop. It was an everyday tool, nothing special about it. Yet, there was an odd energy about her that day, her dark ponytail swishing back and forth as she scrubbed with unusual fervor. Faces twisted in disbelief as a streak of green liquid burst from the mop and splattered across the sleek marble floor. What in the world was that? Gasps echoed, a stark contrast to the sterile, echoing office hallway. It was no ordinary cleaning solution. The scent was reminiscent of growing up, of childhood summers filled with wildflowers and mischief. But beneath that sweet aroma lay something potent, something that made the walls feel oppressive and the light flicker. The lawyers, decked out in their tailored suits, had been typing away, oblivious to the brewing storm that was about to unfold. One by one, they froze in their seats, caught off guard by the strange transformation happening in front of them. The walls were closing in, and their expressions flickered from confusion to sheer terror. Whispering filled the room, growing louder as each moment passed. What is that stuff? Is she serious? The clock ticked ominously on the wall, a reminder that time was running out. And just as the last drops of that toxic sweet concoction hit the floor, the first lawyer yelled out, clutching his throat. Panic set in. Others followed suit, stumbling back, eyes wide with horror. One moment, they were kings of the courtroom, now, they were lost sheep in a wild storm. A cleaning lady had unleashed chaos, and nobody knew what was coming next. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the crowd gasped and surged forward, Rosie stood her ground, a smirk playing on her lips. Who was she really? How had she concocted such a deadly formula? The thrill of the unknown wrapped around everyone present like a thick fog, deepening each heartbeat. The once heroic attorneys now writhed in panic, their cries sharp against the sudden silence of the office walls. Was this the end of their reign, or just the beginning of something much darker? A tense quiet fell, seconds stretching into eternity. But amidst the chaos, the most chilling realization dawned: this was planned. All along, this moment was scripted by someone who knew exactly what buttons to push. But who? As Rosie locked eyes with the dazed crowd, a flicker of something deeper passed between them. A promise? A threat? And then, just as suddenly, she turned on her heel, striding toward the exit, leaving destruction in her wake. What awaited them next? The shocking truth was still hidden in the shadows, waiting to be exposed. The room was filled with moans and coughs, each sound bursting the fragile bubble of disbelief that had settled over the lawyers. They were collapsing against desks, gasping for air, as panic danced in their wide eyes. A suffocating cloud of dread wrapped around them, heavy and biting. One lawyer stumbled past the others, frantically clawing at his collar, as if the very fabric of his suit was a noose tightening with each passing second. Outside, the crowd had grown, a sea of faces pressed against the glass. They stared in disbelief at the mayhem unfolding behind those seemingly impenetrable walls. Whispers echoed through the masses. Is someone calling 911? What's wrong with them? Rosie had already crossed the threshold of the office, stepping into the bustling street. Sunlight flooded her senses, grounding her in the ground-level chaos of the city. She took a moment to breathe, feeling the weight of what just happened transform into a strange exhilaration. The smile that crept across her face was a blend of satisfaction and liberation. But lingering beneath it was a hint of uncertainty. What had she just set in motion? As she strolled down the sidewalk, avoiding the curious gazes of the onlookers, a nagging thought echoed in her mind: this was only the beginning. She had been a part of something colossal. Yet, how had a simple cleaning lady wound up stuck in such a web of revenge? Back in the office, the frenzied chaos had reached a crescendo. The lead partner, a man with a reputation that was built on crushing his adversaries, grabbed hold of his desk, gasping for air. "We need help. We can't let this get out," he shouted, panic-laden urgency etched in his face. The others, struggling against the sudden wave of fear, fought to remain conscious. They could sense the waters rising, their reputations, their livelihoods all flailing in an unseen current. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a figure in a formal suit rushed in, their eyes darting around the room as they took in the scene of horror. "What's happening?" the newcomer yelled, but as they caught sight of the struggling partners, their voice faded into astonished silence. "What did she do?" one of the lawyers hissed between breaths. He clawed at his throat, the panic dissolving into desperation. The others exchanged terrified glances, an unspoken understanding forming among them. They had built empires on the ruins of others, relishing their power while hiding from the specters of their pasts. And now it appeared the past had risen to smite them. Rosie felt the thrill within her, a rush that surged through her veins, unveiling a truth she hadn't fully grasped before today. Though just one cleaning lady, she held the reins of that power now. But with it came danger, the kind that had haunted her more than her old life before she took a stand. Who would want revenge? And more importantly, why her? "You're the cleaning lady. You're the monster we created," a voice sliced through the fog of her musings, dark and laced with fear. Rosie turned sharply, scanning the gathering crowd around the law firm. An attorney she recognized, someone who had laughed at her plight, stood staring at her with wide, horrified eyes. As their gazes met, the air thickened with tension. What did he know? The moment hung expectantly, smoldering with looming revelations that could change everything. Rosie felt the pulse of her heart quicken as she stepped forward, ready to confront the storm she had called forth, only to find her voice rising in defiance. "I'm just getting started." As she locked eyes with her adversary, a chilling thought took root. Had she stumbled into their trap, or had she merely awakened something that had been lying in wait? The burning questions loomed in her mind. What if this was never about revenge? What if there was something much darker in play? In that instant, the faint sound of sirens pierced the air, growing louder and nearer, signaling a reckoning that would soon unfold. What would it reveal? Would justice find its way to those long hidden beneath arrogance? Or was the worst yet to come? The clock was ticking, and Rosie was about to discover how deep the rabbit hole truly went. The sirens wailed like hounds on the hunt, slicing through the air, each note a reminder of chaos. Rosie felt her heart race, not just from the thrill of the moment, but from the reality crashing in around her. Here she stood, a mere cleaning lady, overwhelmed by the magnitude of her influence. "Get out of here." The voice belonged to the frantic attorney, his eyes darting as if looking for a way out of a nightmare. "You don't understand what you've unleashed." Rosie's pulse quickened. "What did you think I would do? Stand aside while you trample others?" The rebellion inside her spoke louder than her trepidation. She savored the taste of power, yet it came without a manual. Did they expect her to simply fade away and let them continue their predatory games? Around her, the crowd stirred. Eyes widened, and whispers spread like wildfire. One woman pushed forward, curiosity overtaking fear. "What's happening in there?" she shouted. Panic twisted like a snake in Rosie's gut. She didn't have all the answers yet. All she could offer was her raw determination. Suddenly, her old boss, Mrs. Baker, emerged from the sidelines, her face pale and drawn. She'd always been stern but fair. The kind of woman to step in when it counted. "Rosie, please," she begged. "You need to leave. This is dangerous." That plea sliced through Rosie. Dangerous? What do you call the years I spent cleaning up after you lot the messes you created? Her voice had struck a chord, and she could sense the shift in the crowd. She glanced back at the law firm's door, still wide open, wicked laughter trapped behind it. She had tossed their facade into shambles and reveled in it, but now fear crept in. Behind her, the chaos inside swelled. The sirens blared. Panic spiraled within the building as lawyers scrambled, creating a phone tree of desperation. They think we poisoned ourselves. One shouted, voice frail and trembling. Good. Rosie declared, surprising even herself. Maybe they feel a fraction of what they made others feel. The sound of her own defiance rippled through her, overwhelming the fears that had once kept her down, but the growing fear within the mass of onlookers was palpable. They were caught between wanting answers and hesitating, confused by the magnitude of sorrow unleashed. A chill swept through as another thought struck her. How would they react when they learned the truth? Lady! An observer shouted, trying to catch her eye. What happened? They needed clarity in the chaos. The more questions asked, the more Rosie's spirit sank deeper into dread. She could feel responsibility growing, wrapping around her like a noose. Something bigger loomed just out of sight. Then, from behind the anxious crowd, a shadow cut closer, heavy footsteps that whispered danger. A tall figure stepped into the sunlight, strikingly poised. True authority exuded from him, an air of someone who had dealt with chaos countless times before. Rosie's breath caught as recognition dawned. This was the lead attorney's brother, someone notorious for cleaning up messes not with mops, but threats. Everyone needs to disperse, he commanded, voice steady. And you, his gaze locked onto Rosie, we need to have a conversation. For a heartbeat, the crowd held its breath, caught on the edge of a precipice. Rosie felt the weight of expectation slip onto her shoulders. What would they say? What would he want? Was she just bait in a trap, or was this her moment to take back control? As the figure advanced, the world receded into silence. It felt as if time had stopped, the sirens fading into a distant hum. Rosie stood firm, heart pounding against her chest. The next few seconds could write her fate. She had started this journey, but would she end it at the hands of the very monster she had sought to confront? And then she realized this was no closing scene. She had only just ripped open the first page of a story she never expected to tell. The question lingered in the air, shrouded in the tension of impending revelation. Could she truly face the truth that awaited her? The attorney's brother closed the gap between them, his eyes glinting like blades in the sunlight. Rosie braced for impact, a mix of anger and fear churning inside her like a storm. The crowd around her murmured, uncertainty rippling through the air. Each whisper felt like a reminder. They were watching her, hanging on every word. Rosie, you think you've gained something here? His voice was smooth, but it carried an undercurrent of menace that sent a shiver down her spine. You've only created a spotlight on yourself. You might have stirred the pot, but you're standing in front of a volcano. She clenched her fists, trying to summon courage. What do you want from me? You're the ones who have been hiding behind your curtains while the world burns outside. Flashy rhetoric for a cleaning lady, he responded, a smirk flickering at the corners of his mouth. But you don't want to play this game. Trust me. He paused, stepping closer, lowering his voice. I can make this go away. For a price. The air thickened, heavy with the gravity of his words. What price would she have to pay? Rosie couldn't let him know how deeply that idea unsettled her. Fear clawed at her insides even as defiance surged. She shook her head. I won to be bought. Not by you, not by anyone. The attorney's brother's smile faded, an edge sneaking into his voice. You think you have power here, but you don't even know the half of it. Your little stunt has consequences. You might have a few backers in the crowd, but there are plenty who want to see you fail. Who want to see you silenced. Silenced. His words ricocheted inside her mind, resonating with the anger that had fueled her rise. You're all the same, she spat, more interested in saving your own skin than facing the damage you've done. With that, the crowd shifted uneasily, caught between outrage at his arrogance and intrigue in her brazen confrontation. She could feel the tension rising, crackling like static before a storm. Someone in the audience shouted, "Tell him, Rosie." But the moment of strength threatened to slip through her fingers. Fear flickered at the edges of her mind. What would happen when the spotlight faded? What repercussions awaited her? The siren screeched brilliantly in the background, a symphony of chaos that mirrored the tempest brewing within her. The attorney's brother stepped back, but his eyes remained locked on her. "You want the truth? You'll get it. But understand, this truth comes with a price. And I can assure you, it won't be what you expect." She realized then that she was standing on the precipice of something much bigger than herself. Her actions had awakened a beast, one whose fangs were not far from her throat. "What do you mean?" she demanded, refusing to be intimidated. "What truth?" He finally broke eye contact, casting a glance back over his shoulder as if the air was ripe with hidden eyes watching from the shadows. "Meet me tonight. Near the old courthouse. Midnight. If you want answers, that's where you'll find them." His tone shifted, dripping with a warning aplomb. "But come alone." As he retreated, Rosie felt a pull in her chest, a mixture of dread and determination. The onlookers shifted back, awash in their own confusion, their eyes darting at Rosie, echoing her internal struggle. They wanted her to lead them, but they had no idea what was waiting in the dark corners of this new battle. What was at stake? What lay hidden in the shadows? The truth could be more devastating than the lies. As the crowd began to disperse, Rosie's heart raced with the weight of his ultimatum. This was her crossroads. The night loomed like a cloaked figure, whispering secrets that could change everything. But could she trust him? What if the truth was a weapon meant to destroy her? The questions hung in the air like a dark cloud, her resolve wavering as the sirens faded into a haunting lullaby. Tonight, everything could change. What awaited her in that moonlit meeting? The clock struck 10 as Rosie prepared herself for the midnight rendezvous. The chill of the night crept in through the cracks of her small apartment, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. She paced back and forth, her breath quickening with every tick of the clock, each second a reminder of her impending confrontation. What was she thinking? An empty parking lot near the courthouse? She felt her stomach tighten at the idea of facing him alone. Risking it all for answers that could bury her deeper than before? Yet, the thought of cowering under the weight of his threats felt unbearable. She paused at the window, peering out into the dark streets. Shadows danced under the sparse streetlights, twisting and warping in the wind, much like her own thoughts. The attorney's brother had been chillingly calm, his words still echoing in her mind. What truth? What could possibly be so devastating that it warranted a meeting in the dead of night? Rosie's heart thundered in her chest as she made one final check of her reflection. Determined eyes stared back through the dim light. She wouldn't show weakness. Not now. Not ever. With a quick glance at her reflection, she turned away, grabbing her jacket and slipping out into the night, the world holding its breath in anticipation. The streets were eerily quiet as she made her way towards the courthouse. Every shadow seemed to shift and linger longer than before, her imagination running wild with every rustle and creak. She reached the old courthouse, its once grand facade now a hollow shell, adorned with peeling paint and cracked stone. The oppressive night sky loomed above, the moon just a sliver of fragile glow that barely fought off the darkness. Rosie took a deep breath, feeling the chill settle around her like an unwanted companion. "You came," a voice echoed from the shadows, crisp and smooth like ice. She jumped, turning to face the attorney's brother, who emerged, calm and composed as if he had been waiting all night. His eyes sparkled with a mix of curiosity and amusement. "I didn't think you would. You must really want those answers. Let us get this over with," she snapped, trying to sound fierce but hearing the slight tremor betray her. "The truth is a double-edged sword," he mused, tilting his head slightly. "You must approach it with respect. I'll offer you a glimpse, but understand you cannot unsee it." He stepped closer, and she instinctively took a half step back. "What do you mean? Just tell me what you know." "Patience, Rosie," he said, a sly grin creeping across his lips. First, let us talk about trust. You stand here wondering if you really know who you are fighting against. The same people who try so hard to control their narratives, who manipulate others like puppets. Fury ignited within her. I'm not afraid. If you think this is about picking a side, you're wrong. I'm fighting for the people you overlook. Exactly, he nodded, but his expression darkened. And that's why you're in danger. They will try to silence you. Let me show you what's truly at stake. The truth will cost you dearly. Before she could respond, a blaring siren interrupted the night, slicing through the tension. Both of them turned instinctively towards the noise. Lights flashed in the distance, a police cruiser hurtling closer. Too close, he muttered, an edge of urgency creeping into his voice. We need to move. They're already on to us. Her heart sank. What had she walked into? The crowd of shadows and uncertainty began to close in. Did her desire for truth really just put her in the crosshairs? His hand shot out towards her, grabbing her wrist with a fierce grip. Come with me, Rosie. If you want the truth, it's time to run. The adrenaline surged as they dashed into the narrow alleys, the sound of the siren echoing like a grim reminder of the danger that had just become all too real. What awaited them in the shadows? Would she discover the truth, or would it consume her whole? The chase had begun, and nothing would be the same again. Rosie stumbled over uneven pavement as the attorney's brother dragged her deeper into the labyrinth of shadows. The siren blared like a death knell, chasing them through the darkness, and she could feel her heart pounding harder with each step. Panic clawed at her throat, but she pushed it aside. Where are we going? She gasped, trying to keep pace. To safety. Trust me. His voice urged her forward, but his grip felt like iron, unyielding and possessive. They wound through alleys, passing crumbling brick walls and the distant sound of a city unaware of their flight. She couldn't shake the feeling of being cornered, hunted. Suddenly, he stopped, and they pressed against the damp wall of a building. Heart in her throat, Rosie looked into his eyes, searching for answers. What is going on? Who's after us? He released her wrist and took a moment, breathing heavily. It's not just the police, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They'll be looking for you soon. You've stirred the hornet's nest. What hornet's nest? I don't understand. She felt a sinking dread as reality began to unfurl. What do you mean they? Who are you talking about? There was a flicker of concern in his eyes, but it was quickly masked by something more sinister. The people controlling the narrative, Rosie. They've hurt others who poked their noses where they didn't belong. This isn't a game. A chill raced down her spine. And you're a part of it? He stepped back, arms crossing defensively. No. I'm trying to help you. But it's bigger than both of us now. The truth, it's dangerous. Before she could respond, a light swept through the alley, illuminating their hiding spot. Stop right there. A harsh voice called out. The unmistakable thud of boots grew louder, officers were closing in fast. Run! He shouted, grabbing her hand again as they darted further into the maze, hearts racing in tandem. Rosie's mind spun frantically, grappling with the chaos unfolding. She had wanted the truth, but each step forward only led her deeper into a darkness she couldn't comprehend. They turned a corner and found themselves in a wider street, the night air thick with tension. Sirens echoed throughout the city, but now, it felt like they were in a web, and every strand was tightening around them. This way. He yanked her toward a towering parking garage that loomed ahead. The concrete structure offered some hope, a possible refuge. As they entered, Rosie cast a glance over her shoulder, the silhouettes of officers searching the street making her stomach twist with fear. This place is filled with cameras, she said, breathless. Isn't that dangerous? Only if we're seen, he replied tersely. We'll stay in the shadows. As they climbed through the dimly lit ramps of the garage, Rosie felt a sense of urgency crushing down on her chest. I just want answers. I can't keep running blind. He paused, intensity etched into his features. You have to understand, Rosie. Knowing the truth means accepting the consequences. They may come for you, for us. Are you ready for that? She swallowed hard, muscles tightening. Was she truly ready to consume the bitter pill of truth? Just then, a phone buzzed in his pocket, shattering the tension. He pulled it out and checked the screen, his expression morphing into one of fear. They found out about our meeting, he breathed, eyes widening. They're on to us, and they know you're involved. Rosie's world imploded. The truth was no longer just about answers, it now felt like a looming threat over her life. Then we need to get out of here, she said, a new determination igniting within her. Where do we go? He shot a glance toward the exit, anxiety pouring from him. There's a place I know, a safe house. But it won't be safe for long. We need to hurry. Just as they were about to move, the echo of footsteps drew closer, the shadows flickering with the promise of danger. Rosie, we have to. The moment was cut short by a loud crash, as the metal security gate came crashing down behind them, blocking their escape. A lump formed in her throat. Trapped, what now? The realization hit hard. The truth was hunting her down, and time was running out. Would she find a way to break free, or was she already caught in the dark web of a conspiracy far greater than she could have imagined? Rosie's breath quickened, panic flooding her veins. The clang of the security gate fell like a final verdict. Darkness enveloped them, a physical weight pressing against her skin. She felt her mind racing, searching, strategizing. We can't let them find us, she whispered urgently. The reality of her situation clutched at her throat, constricting. We'll find another way out. He scanned the parking garage, eyes darting like a predator. The low hum of fluorescent lights flickered above, cast in shades of sterile white that felt cold against them. Another way? Rosie echoed incredulously. Where? It's a dead end. Not if you know the layout. His voice was steadier than she felt. I used to work here at night. He motioned for her to follow. Stay close. Her heart pounded in her ears as they crept through the shadows, keeping low. She could hear voices echoing from the entrance. This was at the moment everything would change. She barely registered what she wanted anymore. All she knew was survival. They ducked behind a row of cars, the metal bodies like silent witnesses to her anxiety. I need a plan, like, now. Rosie hissed, barely holding back the rising tide of hysteria. Okay. He glanced around, fingers running along the cool edge of a nearby vehicle. We can slip through the back stairwell if we hurry. But I need you to trust me completely. No hesitations. You saw the police, they won't stop at nothing. Trust. She wanted to laugh bitterly. What did trust mean in a world where everything felt like a betrayal? She narrowed her eyes, searching his face. Prove it. He stared at her, hard, then nodded. I will. Just keep alert. Without another word, he led her to the rear of the garage, dashing from one shadow to the next. Each step felt like an electric jolt inside her. The door to the stairwell was heavy, and he shoved it open with barely a sound. Rosie slipped through, the stale air brushing over her like a warning. The stairs spiraled upward into darkness. They climbed fast, her legs burning with the effort, the urgency of their flight hammering against her chest. The moment they reached the top, an unexpected sound sent a chill through her, rhythmic pounding echoed boots coming toward them. A new wave of panic surged. She grabbed his arm, nails digging in. What do we do? We can't just stand here. He looked down the corridor, calculating. We hide, then we move. Just follow my lead. They ducked into a cramped utility closet, the smell of chemicals sharp and suffocating. As he pulled the door closed, they were swallowed by the dark. Heart racing, Rosie pressed herself against the cold wall, hating how small that space made her feel. Just a few more moments, he murmured, peering through a crack in the door. The pounding grew louder, then stopped. She could hear muffled voices outside, Urgent whispers followed by the sound of a radio crackling to life. Panic twisted in her stomach. The cops were right there, just beyond the thin barrier. "Do you think they know we're here?" Rosie whispered, the word no a tight knot in her throat. A deep frown lined his face, his eyes full of tension. "If they find us, they'll have questions I can't afford for them to ask. Especially you. Especially me?" She felt the sting of betrayal touch her voice. "Listen," he said sharply, warning radiating through his words. "The longer we stay here, the tighter the noose gets. We're in the worst possible scenario." Suddenly, a loud crash erupted just outside, sending shivers racing up her spine. The door creaked slightly as the sound of footsteps lurching toward them sent her heart into a freefall. "We have to move now, Rosie." He barked suddenly, twisting the knob, but as he flung the door open, the sight that greeted them froze her blood. Standing before them were two officers, flashlights arcing through the dusty air, illuminating a path straight to their hiding spot. A lump formed in Rosie's throat. No escape seemed possible. The truth was closing in, and the darkness felt thicker than ever. "Run!" he shouted, pushing her out into the chaos beyond the door. But she wasn't sure where to run at all. Was this the end, her story lurking in shadows that would swallow her whole? Would she really confront whatever awaited her on the other side? The moment hung in the air, thick with uncertainty, and Rosie faced the choice of a lifetime. Would she walk into the light, or turn back into the impenetrable dark? Adrenaline surged through Rosie as she burst into the corridor, her instincts kicking in. The fluorescent lights flickered harshly against the polished concrete, blinding her as she sprinted forward. Fear clawed at her throat, but she couldn't afford to pause. Behind her, the officers' radios crackled, their voices raised in urgent commands. "Down the hall," he shouted, gesturing sharply to the right. She could see two emergency exits at the far end, glowing in the dim light. They were her only hope, but every step felt like a countdown to disaster. "Go." He was right beside her, matching her pace, but all she could think was how easy it would be to get caught. The echo of thudding footsteps spurred her on, urging her to push harder. Her lungs burned, but there was no time for pain. As they reached the exits, Rosie glanced back. The officers were coming closer, two shadows closing the distance, flashlights sweeping over the ground with terrifying precision. Panic surged anew, twisting her thoughts. "If they caught her, we need to split up," he said urgently, just as they neared the doors. "You take the left. If they see you, just keep running. Don't look back." "Are you insane?" A sliver of disbelief cut through her fear. "What are you talking about? I can't just trust me," he snapped, his eyes wild, desperate. The command rang clear, and somewhere deep within, she found the resolve to obey. She pivoted left and pushed through the door, emerging into an alley thick with shadows. Her heart thundered against her ribcage as she sprinted down the narrow path. The air felt heavy, thick with anticipation. Each corner turned was a cell of suspense, every echo amplifying the risk of being discovered. Behind her, she could hear voices getting fainter. She risked a glance over her shoulder. It was a hollow win. He was gone, her only ally vanishing into the chaos. The realization stung. Was he betraying her? Or was this a maneuver intended to draw attention away? The alley opened up into a larger street, littered with dimly lit storefronts. Neon lights buzzed overhead, casting an eerie glow around her. She couldn't stop to think. Nationwide advisories about an escaped suspect whispered through her mind. Would she fit the description? She had to lose herself in the crowd. With each block she crossed, the urgency within her blossomed into a frantic need to hide. Rosie ducked into a nearby coffee shop, the smell of burnt beans enveloping her as she slipped behind the line of customers, listening in, straining to catch snippets of conversation that felt like lifelines. Her eyes darted to the door, brain racing with possibilities. "Did you hear about those two?" A woman whispered to her friend. "They say they're armed and dangerous." A chill ran down Rosie's spine. "They can't catch me, I want to." Her voice trailed off, swallowed by the hum of the cafe, but the adrenaline brought clarity. What if it was true? What if the one person she sought to trust was playing a dangerous game? She stepped back, taking cover behind a grouping of chairs. Panic and betrayal warred within her, making her breath come in short, shallow bursts. What was her plan now? There was no one to guide her. Her instincts screamed for action, but she feared the path ahead might hold more than just the police. A sudden burst of noise flooded the cafe. An officer stormed in, a wild look in his eyes as he scanned the bustling room. "We're looking for a woman in her 20s, brown hair, possibly distressed," he barked into his radio. The world shifted beneath her feet, reality narrowing down to this moment of reckoning. Rosie's heart raced as she weighed her options. Stay hidden? Make a run for it? The doubts cascaded. And just as she thought of slipping out the back, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket, the screen lighting up with a message that could change everything. "Meet me at the old warehouse. I have answers." Was he helping her, or was this a trap? She had to decide, and fast. Would she take the leap into the unresolved chasm of uncertainty, or cling to safety while the police closed in? The clock was ticking. Rosie felt it echoing in her veins. The cafe was suddenly a pressure cooker. Rosie swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the officer's gaze searching the room like a spotlight. Each tick of the clock echoed in her ears, the buzzing neon humming relentlessly as she tried to decide her next move. The words of the text flickered in her mind, merging with her fears and doubts. Meet me at the old warehouse. What was waiting for her there? Relief or ruin? Trusting him felt like standing on a tightrope stretched over an abyss. But standing still felt like a death sentence. As the officer began to walk deeper into the cafe, Rosie could almost see the seconds slipping away. She hadn't come this far to be trapped in a coffee shop, caged by her own doubts. Pushing deep breaths into her lungs, she slipped out from behind the chairs, moving quietly toward the back exit. Every footstep felt like a drumroll, each beat announcing her imminent decision. She stole one last glance at the officer, whose attention was distracted by murmurs from the customers. It was now or never. Rosie slipped through the back door and into the dim alley. The air hit her like a cold slap, sharp and invigorating. She turned her phone in her hand, weighing the distance to the warehouse against what she might face there. Then she remembered the police had their own technology. They could trace her phone. With a jolt of clarity, she turned around and ducked behind a dumpster. Flicking off her phone, she felt suddenly more in control, but a wave of uncertainty slithered back in. How would she find him? After a moment's hesitation, she took off again, heart pounding, navigating through back alleys and side streets until she reached the old warehouse. The decrepit structure loomed before her, its broken windows staring down like hollow eyes. Cautiously, Rosie approached, her pulse racing as she peered inside. Shadows danced along the walls, and the smell of rust and decay filled the air. The place felt empty, a spectral silence hovering around her. She stepped through the splintered door, which creaked in protest. "Hello?" she called, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. Silence answered. She hesitated, torn between fear and a desperate need for answers. Was he really waiting for her, or had this been a cruel trick from the start? She swept her gaze across the room. Old crates, empty barrels, and a faint outline of what almost seemed like furniture could be seen in the dust. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, with a frantic energy. "It's you," he said, his voice a mixture of relief and disbelief. "You actually came. Why did you call me here?" Rosie demanded, not masking her wariness. "Are you in this with them? Is this all a setup?" No. He rushed to clarify, hands raised. "I wouldn't do that to you. You need to listen. There's a lot you don't know. They're looking for something you were involved in." Rosie felt the ground shift beneath her. "What do you mean? What could I possibly have?" Before she could finish, the sound of footsteps echoed from outside, disrupting their tense moment. Rosie's heart sank and adrenaline flooded her body anew. "We have to hide," he hissed, pulling her towards the back of the warehouse. She wanted to scream, to ask him for answers, but instead, She felt herself being led into a darker corner, a place of shadows that seemed to swallow them whole. As they crouched in stillness, breathing shallow and fast, Rosie's mind raced. What were they searching for? And was it true? Had she unwittingly stumbled into something far bigger than her escape? Then, just as they huddled low, she heard a voice outside, louder and more threatening than the rest. We know you're in there. Come out with your hands up. Panic twisted inside her. The officers had found her trail. They were closing in, and the stakes had never been higher. Get ready to run, he whispered, but Rosie felt a chill run down her spine. If they escaped this, would she finally learn the truth? Or would everything spiral even further out of control? Just what was that truth? She thought, heart racing as the confrontation loomed, and from the depths of uncertainty, an inescapable thought crystallized. There was no turning back now. The darkness of the warehouse enveloped Rosie and the attorney's brother as they held their breath, fear echoing deep in their bones. The voice outside rang out threateningly, demanding them to emerge. Anxiety gripped Rosie, twisting her insides into knots. She didn't want to be trapped here, her heart set on answers. Would they find her? Would she and her only ally be caught in this perilous game? Stay quiet, he whispered through clenched teeth, eyes darting to the heavy door. She nodded, a lump forming in her throat. Their world felt like a pressure cooker, and the heat was rising. The footsteps grew louder, officers' radios crackling with fervor outside. No one's coming out, huh? All right, then let us make this interesting, one officer scoffed, the mocking derision slicing through the silence. What do they want from us? Rosie muttered, a desperate glance exchanged with the attorney's brother. You mean what do they want from you? He murmured back, glancing at her with urgency, their breaths mingling in the hushed darkness. You're the target. She swallowed hard, frustration bubbling to the surface. Why? I'm just a cleaning lady. I didn't ask for any of this. I know, but they see you as a loose end, something they can't control. The door rattled, the pressure of the moment clawing at her mind. With every stray sound from the officers outside, Rosie's heartbeat sank to the pounding dread. This was it, they would either find her or leave empty-handed. Suddenly, she felt a surge of defiance. If I'm the target, then I might as well face them. If I'm not fighting back now, when will I? What are you saying? He looked at her, both incredulous and alarmed. With a fierce determination, Rosie stood, the shadows no longer a refuge but a cage. I'm going out there. I want the truth. I need to understand why they're after me. He grabbed her arm, but her conviction silenced him. I have to do this. Rosie, no. But she had already pushed the door open, revealing the chaos beyond. Adrenaline coursed through her as the officers halted in shock, eyes wide with surprise. I'm here. She shouted, her voice echoing against the concrete walls. I'm the one you're looking for. In that split second, Rosie felt the weight of her choice wrap around her like chains, yet liberating in its own terrifying way. The officers quickly pivoted, their attention diverted, eyes narrowing in confusion. Stay back. One officer barked, raising a weapon. But Rosie held her stance, heart hammering in her chest. I'm not running anymore. I'm done with hiding. Do you know what you're doing? Asked one of the officers, his voice laced with authority and concern. Enough with the charades, I want the truth of what's happening. A rush of bravery surged forward, and Rosie pressed through the fear. You don't know the whole story, and neither do I. What are you looking for? Why are you after me? The shouts of the officers rose above her, commands flying around her like a whirlwind of confusion. But in that moment it wasn't just noise, she was at the center of this storm, shaping it. Stand down. You are surrounded. Came a commanding voice from behind. Rosie's stomach dropped. The attorney's brother stood, flanked by multiple figures, officers and more still, concealed men in suits with eyes sharp as knives. Rosie, he said in alarm, stepping closer. You don't want to be part of this. It's too late for that now. She shot back, filled with sudden rage. Why are you playing both sides? The audacity brimming in her voice shocked even her. One of the suited men stepped forward, brushing his hair back. Miss, what you've done has opened doors we can't simply close. What doors? Rosie felt the fire inside pulse. What do you mean? Let us just say revenge dances on the edge of chaos, he said smoothly, a sinister smile creeping onto his lips. You think you've shattered their lives, but they're merely shadows hiding behind power. And power is something you know little of. The realization hit like a flood. The darkness she battled was wrapped in webs spun by these men. The roles had reversed again. She was no longer more than a pawn, but a player in a game greater than she understood. Do you even care what happens to me? She challenged, holding her ground, desperation clawing at her throat. Not your life, but its potential, the man replied. The truth isn't just about vengeance, it encompasses the power to change the very system that oppresses you. Rosie exchanged glances with the attorney's brother. Their paths diverged yet again, as he stepped forward to speak. The truth can ensnare the innocent, but it can also free them. Are you prepared for what that entails? Rosie took a deep breath, the weight of the choice crashing upon her again. What if the truth ends up destroying me in the process? The truth, the man said ominously, never fails to reveal those who stand in its light. We can ensure your safety, but it comes at a cost. That familiar sense of urgency returned. Choices lay ahead, layered in obstacles, but one truth now shone clear: this was her fight. She could stand alongside them or forge her own path. I choose to walk in light, Rosie finally declared, determination hardening her resolve. The officer's expressions shifted, surprise mingling with admittance. We'll protect what emerges from this, the suited man agreed, tipping his head just a fraction, as if signaling agreement. The moment hung heavy, a pivotal crossroads, and as the shadows shifted, she realized that here was the spark for a new chapter. Facing the forces that conspired the chaos, the lies Rosie had found her voice. No longer the cleaning lady, but a force rising from the ruins of silence. Let us unveil the truth, she said, lifting her chin, ready to battle darkness. With renewed strength and clarity, they moved forward. The time for shadows was over, the light beckoned the truth, and this was only the beginning. This was the moment she'd been waiting for, the clash that would define everything. Now, it's your turn to join the battle of truth. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support the journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.